Hello everybody and welcome back. Today we're going to continue coloring, this time with the exterior. Now if you can remember way back when we started this, we had this picture for reference. And we're going to use these colors loosely to color our model so we can get started with the roof. And that's essentially a black. And so what we can do there is just turn off the first floor or second floor and then just go through and make sure that all of this stuff is on the first floor. And then we can just highlight everything and press B for bucket. We'll go down to our color. We'll say red for now, just as a good benchmark color. And then we can start adjusting. Now if we look at our reference, this color up here is more of a bluish black. And this one seems to be more of almost a reddish black, as well as the window frames. But we'll probably just use one sort of shade of black around the house. So we'll maybe try to find maybe a middle ground, some sort of green maybe. Just to offset the warmth. Maybe about there. There we go. I think that looks pretty good. And scale that down a tiny bit. And so now we can toggle the second floor back on and we can get into doing the edges. And we'll probably just lighten this up a little bit. So we can click into the roof and we'll select the edge here. We can just go back to select. We'll say red again, just to make sure we have a different color. And we'll just make sure we get all these edges. There we go. And so now we can just go back to edit and then do sort of the same thing. Try to find an area where we can lighten it up a little bit, but still have a little bit of color in there. I think that works. And so now we can get into the ceiling. And as you can see, because we painted those black, the ceilings inside the second floor are now actually affected as well. So we can just hide the second floor. We'll go into this and we'll just pick white and paint these faces white for now, until we actually get into the coloring of the second floor and we can change them a little bit. So now we can toggle the first floor back on and get into painting these pillars. And these were essentially a stone color, so we can just get into this here. And we'll just paint all of them. I'll actually draw some lines in here to sort of cut off the bottom. And I think for this one right here, we'll actually we'll hide the second floor. And we'll pull up this piece and sort of make it part of the first floor, because I think that would make more sense when we get into the texturing. Just so we don't have a break right here in the texture, making it a bit more obvious. Then we can get out of that and hide the roof and the first floor. Toggle the second floor on. And then we can just push this flush. Erase that line. There we go. And so now we can edit this. We'll just make sure we have the right color. And then we can just go into manipulating it, pull down the red a little bit there. And we almost want this to be more of a yellow. We'll say there for now, and then we can go around with the tops. Just go around and color all of these now. There we go, that's those done. And now we can just go over to the edit layer and scale that down as well now. Maybe bring it up to a blue and scale that back. So we want it to be definitely a bit sort of a cooler color than the bases. Maybe almost a green. I think right there is working. That would make it almost a sort of a lime green, yellowy color. I think that looks pretty good. And we can probably use this color as well for the bases of the concrete around the foundation here. So we'll just go ahead and do that. And I guess this can be the same as the base of the garage, because this is going to be concrete as well. So we can paint it that color. It's starting to look like something. And so now we can get into doing the wood finish. So again, we'll just go around with the red because it's vibrant and we can essentially tell whether or not we missed something. Like right here where it's actually painting the inside of the window frame when it should really only be painting the outside. So we'll undo that and then just draw a line across here, right there, and then that should fix that problem. And I guess we'll have to draw a line all the way around this window so that it doesn't draw or doesn't continue the paint to the interior of the bathroom. Just delete that face and we can go around now and start painting all of this. So I think that'll do it for the first floor. Now we can move on and click into the second floor and start painting some of these faces. Alright, I think that's everything. I think we got all the faces. And so what we'll do is pop over to edit and start trying to find a wood grain color that we like. And obviously this isn't final, but it will help us choose the color that we want later on. And I think that looks pretty good, so maybe we'll leave it at that. And we can move on to doing all of the door frames and windows now. We can kind of refine that color maybe a little bit afterwards. And so now we can paint the balcony railing relatively quickly. Thanks to the way SketchUp works, it sort of breaks down components into two categories, painted and unpainted. And so if you try to recolor an already painted face in a component, it's not going to work. However, if you try to paint an unpainted face in a component, it will work. So in this instance where we already have the sort of the glass painted blue, all of the other pieces are still unpainted. So we can just sample the roof here. We'll go up and make sure we have that right color black. And we can just click once. And we'll go through and paint all of those individual pieces for us, leaving the glass exactly as it was. So that means we can go around and do that essentially for the rest of the pieces as well, including these windows and the doors. Just make sure we have them selected, click once, and it will paint everything on them. Now, of course, the problem with this is it means it's also painting the interior of the window. So if you want the interior of the window to be a different color, and in this case we might decide to do that, you're going to have to go in and recolor it manually. But we'll just go through and color these for now and I guess see what it looks like afterwards. And of course, painting a component from outside means you're not actually manipulating the component. As you can see, we have a black door up here. If we go down to the back of the house here, which has the same component, it's actually still white. So it just gives you another layer to play with. If you have two models that you want to look the same, but not necessarily be the same color, it should save you some time and having to go in and manually repaint them. And so that'll do it for all the doors and windows. Now we can just go around and make sure that all of the handles and all of the trim pieces are the correct colors. You pop into this door here, paint this silver, pop into the inside as well, make sure that one's silver. So I want to go into the garage as well now and make sure that all these hinges are silver and not black. And so I think we have this wrapped up essentially as far as the trim goes on the outside here. But I think what we'll do is sample the exterior here and make this a little bit more vibrant to sort of match the sort of the black trim, maybe around there. Maybe something like that. I think that looks pretty good. So now we can just go around and finish up all these trim colors. And we'll make this one, I guess we'll make this the same color as the door. Just make sure that we get the interior piece here. There you go, that's that door done. We can go around and do the trim on this one. And I have no idea what we're going to make this door box. I guess we'll make the door box black as well. Okay, paint the inside of that. There we go. Can leave the first layer now and get out to the exterior where we can see the hinges. Paint the hinges same color as the door handle. I think we can get into maybe manipulating the column color a little bit, darken it just a tad. I can take this concrete color and just go one more notch on that. If you use the scroll wheel on these sliders as well, you can adjust them, which makes it easier to refine them down a little bit. And now we're going to have to go through here and I guess we'll just sample this line up to there. Erase that, and then the same on this side. And then that way we can decolor the interior here. And now we can do the deck. We don't want to leave it white. It is sort of white on the original image here, but what we'll do is make this almost sort of a washed out faded wood color. Just make sure we have all the faces selected. And it looks like this bottom face actually wraps to the inside, and of course it does. It's actually the ceiling on the bottom there, so we'll draw some lines around and make sure that we cut that off from the outside. So we can get out of there, toggle the roof back on just so it's more of a complete image, and we can edit. And we'll want this to be, even turn on shadows I guess. So we want it to be sort of a washed out look, more of a yellow hue to it. We don't want it to be too gray, and especially not too similar to the stone columns around the edges here. Yeah, maybe something like that. We can go with that for now. And it kind of does look a bit similar, doesn't it? So take the brightness and bring it up a bit so that it doesn't look too similar. There we go. I think that'll do for now. I'll have to wall off this one right here, draw some lines down, and delete these in between faces. And we can paint this our exterior color. I guess we can get into here. This is essentially just going to be a little rubber piece. So we can make it a gray color for the edge there, and then a bit of a darker color. And we can even go into the inside here and do some detail on these edges. I think this color should actually be really more of the interior color. We'll probably have to draw a line down from here, so we'll have to find where that goes up from the edge of the garage and then draw this down right to the bottom of this sort of pillar piece. Make sure we keep it on that line. And then if we go to the interior, this top piece should be a separate face now. There we go. And in fact, what we can probably do is cut this off right here where the column begins, just so we don't have a little stone strip going up into the garage. You can Erase that there. And there we go. This should be a separate face now. And we'll want to do the same on this side as well. I think that'll work. We can go into the interior now and we'll just sample the edge there and decolor this. And just go out and make sure that both of those pillars are still fully colored. Then we can go back into the garage again and we'll take 2 of these frames for the garage door and we can paint those now. Make those sort of a gray color. And then select all these wheels. I'll probably keep these closer to a white color so we won't go too dark. I probably make them red first and then manipulate that a little bit. And I do use red a lot, but primarily it's because I don't think I would ever use such a vibrant red on its own, which means there are no other instances in the case of me using that red that will then be changed to something else. So we can go through, we'll toggle the second floor off as well as the roof and even our shadows as well. Now get back into the first floor and start sort of finalizing some of the colors. And I think what we can do maybe down here is we'll take some of these doors and we'll even take this cabinetry color and just see what it looks like on those. Yeah, so we got you get some sort of example as to what it would look like, and I don't know, I'm not sure. I think we could probably go with some more neutral colors down here rather than such a sort of a coarse black. So we'll go through and undo that. And so I guess what we can do is sort of use almost a neutral version of this sort of color, and we can do the baseboards for that as well. But I do think we'll use maybe a white on the inside. And so we'll take our red again and just paint up all these faces that we want to change. Alright, so we've gone around and painted the interior of this sliding door all red. And now we can manipulate it. And what we've essentially done, if we just go in and hide this door here, is sort of split where the red and the black meets in the middle. And essentially just picked whatever faces would look better from an inside and outside perspective. Undo that and just go in and start editing this. I want to make this sort of a gray offset. Maybe something around there will work. And we can take the color from our sliding door now as well and use that on the rest of the doors down here. Now we can just sort of figure out a frame color. So we'll go through with our red now and paint all of these. And so that's those 3 frames painted, and we'll probably leave it there for now. And we can go and manipulate these before we get into doing the baseboards. Even just have it be just an off color of the door. And maybe we'll even sort of reverse these. You can make the trim color a little bit lighter than the door color. Yeah, I think that works. So now we can go around, we'll grab our frame color and do up the baseboards. And these should be relatively easy to do as they're all sort of their own components. And now we can get into coloring the interior window and door frames. And so that's all the trim done. Now we can do the actual wall colors themselves in this main room here. And this will be very close to white, but we'll offset it just a little bit. Around there, just a 1% on the orange, just to give it a tiny, tiny bit of character. We'll toggle in the second floor as well, just so that the upstairs floor is the right color. And sort of to clue things up here, we can go and paint the rest of these window interiors. Make sure it matches the inside of the sliding door. We'll just see how it looks from the outside. I think it looks fine. I think we'll, just as a sort of a finishing touch, we'll grab this rug again and maybe even give this a bit more color. So that about does it. That will leave the main door and the garage door unpainted on the inside, but I think we'll leave those black, at least for the time being. So that'll do it for the coloring. For the most part, there are still a few other things we need to color, but that will do it for this video. And it's actually kind of amazing how much coloring there actually is to do on this house, considering it's not even close to being finished yet. There's still a lot of stuff upstairs to do. And this is probably what we'll focus on doing next time, some of the door frames as well as some of the bifolds and figuring out what we're going to do with the upstairs here. But until then, thank you everybody for watching. I'll see you guys next time.